Shoujo manga are often looked down upon by certain people in the manga community. You know who you are. And while I personally disagree, there are a lot of truly terrible shoujo manga that seem to sneak their way up the popularity charts, and they create this consensus that shoujo manga are bad, cheesy, and just straight up garbage. So this video is going to recommend 5 awesome shoujo manga that break through boundaries and innovate upon the traditional shoujo formula. These manga feature heartwarming character dramas, creative science fiction stories, fierce battles, and crazy world building that rivals some of the best in the industry. Oh, okay, it's not as good as One Piece, but they have so many things going for them, I consider these manga must-reads for any shoujo fan. And for those who've been stuck reading shonen and seinen their whole lives, this is your chance to branch out and read some excellent shoujo series. Usemono Yado is a very unique manga about an inn and its landlady, who happens to be a child. This specific inn is special. People are guided from all walks of life to find old things that they've forgotten. Run by an old man, he greets the confused guests like old friends, and invites them to stay at the inn as long as they please. During their stay, the child landlady leads them to an object or idea that they had forgotten. Some guests come and go within an hour, while others stay for years, unable to find that one object or idea. The inn is not subject to any type of morality, thus criminals and other folk are treated just like anyone else. It's a place rid of discrimination of any kind, really. But it's not the utopia that it seems. The origins of the inn are shrouded in mystery, and many of the guests can't seem to remember how they got there, beyond being led by a mysterious man named Matsuda, who appears to have a connection with the landlady. Despite being a very short manga at only 3 volumes, every chapter could realistically be a standalone series, and it sends a very powerful message to the reader. It grapples with discontentment and missed opportunities, as characters must try and reflect to remember the things that they had forgotten, often being integral to their lives. What really gives it a kick is the woeful tale of the landlady, and as the story progresses, we learn more and more about her situation and how she ended up living permanently at the inn. Her connection with Matsuda is what gives this manga a real shoujo vibe, and what makes it special. If you have an hour or two to kill, because it is only 18 chapters, I would highly suggest sinking your teeth into Usemono Yado and learning the lessons that come along with it. What's the most heartwarming thing that you've ever read or watched? Think about it. Feel the emotions it made you feel, and think about having those feelings doubled. That is what Wake Up Sleeping Beauty does to anyone who reads it, the next manga I want to talk about on this list. Hardworking high school student and butler Tetsumi Sato finds himself working at a huge mansion on the hill. He learns the ins and outs of the mansion and eventually becomes entranced with the lone building beside the garden. Inside it lives the estranged daughter of the family, who is isolated from society due to a mysterious, unknown illness. Eventually, Tetsu coincides with the girl and they quickly get to know each other, revealing her name to be Shizu, and that she's had no human contact for years. After a few more meetings, Tetsu develops strong feelings towards Shizu, but as he realizes how he feels, the true nature of her illness comes to light. It's hard to describe the plot without spoiling the key mysteries that define the series, so I can't really describe her illness to you, but what I can tell you is that Shizu and Tetsu have a strong dynamic that's highlighted through their understanding of one another. The romance wasn't rushed, or cheesy, or cliché, it was sweet, and it showcases love in its purest form. In today's hookup culture, it was a nice change of pace to experience how two people who really care for each other experience life at the deepest level. Throughout a shorter 6 volumes, much like Usemono Yado, the story is tight, well written, and clever. In particular, each of the characters feel like real people, personalities that are well written, they have backstories, and great characterizations. Reading through it makes you feel happy, inspired, and warm, as though the world isn't such a bad place after all. And that's why I think the story succeeds so well at being a shoujo. Rather than being a long melodrama, it's a concise tale that keeps an undertone of intensity while still being a feel-good romantic drama. I would highly recommend Wake Up Sleeping Beauty, as I think it's the epitome of what a shoujo is. While the rest of these may subvert the genre in some way, this is just classic, peak shoujo, and I don't think it's beaten by any other manga. Recently, there was a TED video my YouTube recommended titled, "What if you experienced every life in human history?" Basically, what if every time you died, you were reborn as the next human in history, eventually living over 4 trillion years and experiencing everything humanity has ever felt? Lonely and depressing, right? Well, that's kind of the plot of Immortal Reign, a painfully underread manga that explores the human condition. Why do we keep striving forward when everything about life makes you want to say, screw this? Well, for 624-year-old Reign, who is immortal, yeah, Immortal Reign, it's the title, he's got a huge bounty over his head because of the people wanting his secret to eternal youth. One such bounty hunter is 14-year-old Machka Balfalten, spurred to assassinate Reign after he was the only target her grandfather, a famous assassin, couldn't catch. However, instead of successfully killing him, Machka ends up being saved by Reign over and over again, from other aspiring bounty hunters trying to catch them both. The two end up forming a symbiotic relationship with each other and travel together throughout the mystical, post-apocalyptic world that they live in. As you might expect, there's a strange romance between the two main characters that gets slowly developed as the story progresses. Typical shoujo, and a little strange if you ask me. But the true greatness, I would say, lies in the second half of the series. Remember that TED-Ed video? Well, the character who experiences every life in history isn't Reign, but another character named Yuka. He's the primary antagonist whose goal is to die eternally. His curse of resurrection has kept him alive for millennia, and he's so fed up with being a human. I mean, look at us, right? So he comes to the logical conclusion that he must wipe out humanity, so there's nobody left alive to give birth to him. Which, not a bad idea, right? It's a unique antithesis to the traditional villain whose goal is to seek immortality. Without spoiling any major reveals, him and Reign have an incredible dynamic that keeps their strings of life tied together. Think of the line, neither can live while the other survives. Perhaps not literally, but it's how it feels when reading the climactic moments of the series. Wow, that was a lot, but if there's anything I could say about Immortal Reign, is that it's powerful. And reading it will make you feel like you're being forcefully taken on this beautiful trip around the world to explore how different people live, and to really explore what it means to be a human. When combining shoujo, science fiction, and manga, many will immediately think of Seven Seeds, a popular manga that unfortunately got the Netflix adaptation treatment. So instead, I'm going to recommend an older, more refined sci-fi shoujo story, Please Save My Earth. Yeah, strange title aside, Please Save My Earth is a manga about the complexity of human relationships and the overwhelming feeling of sin. A group of high schoolers and one younger boy suddenly experience strange visions alluding to their past lives aboard a futuristic spacecraft as alien scientists. Absurd? Audacious? Ambitious? Yeah. The premise is one of the most fantastical ideas I've ever read, and I read real books. Over time, these memories begin to unravel and develop along the current lives of the characters. The intersectional plot lines that flow in multiple directions can be admittedly very hard to follow for the first 3 to 5 volumes. But once you wrap your head around the complicated timelines and dramatic relationships between the complex cast of interesting characters, the manga is truly one of a kind. The primary focus is the characters, and one so-called critical event, which sits as a mystery box throughout most of the manga. Each of the main characters are highly flawed individuals who are shaped by their alien upbringing. For example, one of the scientists, Mokurin, is an angelic deity who is blessed with supernatural abilities alongside otherworldly natural beauty and intelligence. Much like Subaru from Dance Subaru, she struggles to find her own place in the society due to her immense value. It leads to her struggling to form interpersonal relationships with her peers in a world where she's seen as this perfect object. Her foil Shion is a war orphan, who looks down upon other people who are less innocent than himself. He hates everything about Mokurin's perfection, but in turn, Mokurin views this hatred as proof that she's just a normal human girl. Please Save My Earth is filled with relationships like these, with each character having a unique bond with one another. In accordance with science fiction stories, world building is, for lack of a better word, huge. Through rich backstories of the entire cast, we're taken to the mechanics and intricacies of alien society. Saki Hiwatari does an excellent job of creating a standalone alien universe that feels wholly different from Earth, and in that regard, it succeeds brilliantly in contrasting the two storylines from a world-building perspective, and this is reflected in the art itself. Comparing two panels from the alien timeline to the Earth timeline makes it abundantly clear which is which, defining both settings without an overuse of exposition. It's important to note that while the art is strong in some regards, it's certainly dated compared to modern standards. It often lacks the complexity and detail, suffering from the time it was made in the late 80s. Regardless, the overwhelming artsy shoujo stylistic art is still effective in conveying the proper visuals to support the narrative of the story. Please Save My Earth is an excellent science fiction story that exemplifies the complex character dramas that make a manga truly feel like a shoujo. One of my favorite tropes in manga is the flawed yet incredibly talented character. I've made an entire video discussing the characters of Masahito Soda, such as Subaru, Daigo, and Taira, who all exemplify that trope to a T. Much like those manga is Cat Street. It's much more dramatic and shoujo-like, but it features a main character who, at her core, is a troubled individual struggling with her talent. Kato Aoyama is a former famous child actor, withdrew from society after a childhood incident. Now, at 16, she passes her days in meaningless boredom and without any purpose. But a chance encounter with a stranger pushes her to a strange school called L. Liston, a free high school for students who struggle in normal society. Not like weirdos, but people with talent. Like herself, her fellow students are extremely talented. A prodigal coder, bored of the mundane learning in normal high school, a gothic Lolita, obsessed with creating her own sense of fashion and designing her own clothes, and a former famous soccer player, stunted due to an incident but still very kind, leading him to befriending Kato and introducing her to the rest of L. Liston. The school is run by the mysterious principal Kojima, whose identity remains one of the biggest mysteries throughout the story. The tale plays out like a mix of a coming-of-age story and a romance story. I would describe it as a 1A, 1B sort of plotline. If you dislike traditional love polygons and exaggerated romances, Cat Street is definitely for you. It's a tale about how to heal from your past and take the first steps forward. The art is generic, but has a splice of uniqueness to it. Kato in particular is drawn as very attractive and a shining young woman. She simply has the appearance of an idol or an actor. I'm not really sure how else to put it. Cat Street is an extremely mature, adult-like story of a young girl trying to be better, through making friends, falling in love, and finding a career, all while facing the hardships of growing up through young adulthood.